As a small business owner, you've probably been trying to figure out exactly which platforms on social media you should be going after. There's so many of them, and if you try to get yourself on all of them and spend all of your time there, you're gonna have no time to actually do your business. So today, I'm gonna take you through the pros and cons of the really big guys. I'm talking about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And by the end, you're gonna know the pros and cons of each. You're gonna have a better idea of which one is gonna be the best for you to focus on. And you're gonna know how to start doing that and really building up your business and getting things going. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you sub, make sure that you like and comment and all that stuff, and let's get started. So before we get into the specific platforms, let's just be clear that we don't want to be on every single platform. I just said that, but just to be very clear, we probably want to pick 2 or 3 platforms that we're on and really focus hard on those. Because again, if you're on every single platform, if you're trying to do all of the ones that I mentioned, and TikTok and like anything else new that's coming on, you're gonna bury yourself in social media work, you won't be able to get anything else done, and your business is actually gonna suffer as a result. So we need to think about the effort that you can put in. We need to think about where your customers are and what you're selling, and that's all gonna be very indicative of where you should be pushing your product. So for instance, if you're a wedding photographer, then Twitter probably doesn't make as much sense because you can only put up 5 pictures at a time. It's much more text and story focused. Even though it's short text, it's very focused on the text and less so on the other types of media. If you're a yoga instructor, you want to think more about video, so YouTube might make more sense, or maybe Instagram. And one more example, if you're a SaaS company, then LinkedIn is gonna probably make the most sense because that's a network where professionals are coming to look at professional things for the most part. And so that just might be the place that you need to look at. So the first thing that you need to consider is, even though we're gonna go through all of these, don't expect to be on every single one of these platforms because it's just not feasible. So let's start with what I think is probably the most difficult of these platforms, Twitter. Twitter is really difficult because the expectation is that you're tweeting an average of 16 times a day if you want to build up reach and get more people engaging in your content. That's huge. I mean, I can't do that. I feel like the only way that I could do that, even when I'm scheduling it, is if I just focus on Twitter and I focus on nothing else. I mean, some people love it that way, that's great, but for me, I don't feel like I can give it anything unless I'm giving it everything. And so I find that to be a difficult thing about it. But more than that, organic reach is actually declining on Twitter because the algorithm optimizes based on what it thinks that you missed that you're really gonna like when you weren't on the app. So when you're off of the app, it's pulling in that information that you didn't look at, and then you open up the app again and it gives you that stuff it thinks you're gonna like the most. What that means is that it's looking at interactions and engagement, etc. And if you have a low follower base, you're gonna get naturally low engagement, which means that people aren't ever gonna see it because when they open up the app again, there's gonna be stuff with higher engagement because they have higher followers, and it's this self-fulfilling prophecy that it just feels like you can't win on. And that's been getting worse and worse over the years, almost like they want you to pay for it. Interesting. Follower loyalty, I find, is actually pretty low. I think this is an important thing to look at because it's good to know if people are willing to unfollow you very quickly or not. And in Twitter's case, the follow-unfollow rate is very, very high. People are willing to follow you, wait for you to follow them back, and then unfollow you so that they get the follower number and then you don't have anything and they don't care about you. And that's great if you like vanity metrics, but if you're actually looking to build a community, which is actually how you build sales, it doesn't do anything for you because you could have 2 million followers and a 0.01% engagement rate. That means that 0.01% of your people might even just be seeing it and engaging with it. So your engagement's gonna go down every time. And even beyond that, if people are seeing, oh, they've been following you and they're not interested in your content, they'll just unfollow you. It takes no effort on their part. So that means that you need to keep innovating and keep coming up with new content. It needs to be fresh all the time, and there's nothing that can survive in the background. It doesn't work that way. So that's kind of a downside to Twitter, I would say. And another upside is this huge client base. So an average Twitter user has 5 businesses that they're following, and 80% of Twitter users have mentioned a brand at least once. What this means is that if you're a brand, the visibility is humongous. So if you're willing to spend the time on this, or if you can get a team to invest in Twitter, it can be really huge to building out your business if you focus on building out your brand on Twitter and getting people to mention it and building out influencers and that sort of thing. So Facebook, the first thing to know here is that the age generally is going up on Facebook. So people are getting older, it's becoming to the young people, the old people social network. And so if you're targeting people who are under 35, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to focus a lot on Facebook. You're gonna need to look at another social platform. But if you're looking at people 35 and above, then obviously it makes a lot more sense. And there are really two big facets to Facebook. There's the pages and the groups. So let's first look at the pages. Facebook page organic reach is total garbage now. It used to be back in the day that if a friend of yours liked a page or liked a post on that page or a comment on that page, you could see that. And if you started to see it more often, you could comment on it yourself, you could engage in other ways, or you could like or follow the page, and it would build that engagement for that page, right? And so that was a really great thing to build that organic reach very quickly, but that doesn't exist anymore because they want you to pay for it. And they want you to pay for it most often using this thing called a boosted post, which you should never do because it costs roughly the same as a regular advertisement, but you're getting no targeting options. It's like an ad with no control over the ad. So if you're actually interested in pushing a post on your page, you need to go over to the business manager and the ads manager and just build out an ad there with a lot more detailed targeting information, and you're gonna have a lot more success. One great thing about Facebook pages though is this audiences analytics. You can get really detailed information about who's liking your posts, who the audience is, what kind of other things they like, what kind of language they like to use, what posts are most interesting to them. And you can use this information in concert with your Google Analytics information on your website to understand who's in your audience that's actually interested in pushing through and who's just kind of there and isn't really worth being pushed on a whole lot. So this is really effective to help you optimize those sales on your Facebook page. The other side of Facebook is Facebook groups. Facebook groups have been dead for a long time, but they're making a huge comeback now because what businesses are doing is they're making private Facebook groups that people can join maybe if they've paid for a course or if they're part of somebody else's community and they want to be involved in that community more. So when you're involved in that community, you get a lot more excited about it, right? I'm certainly in a couple of these where I get really excited, and it's really awesome to see their posts because they're excited about what they're doing as well. And that's not only great for building the community internally, but as long as you're continuing to nurture them, it's gonna up your sales for future products. So you can up sales for future products. You can vet information before it goes to the rest of the public to see if people are interested. You can handle issues more quickly and more directly. There's a lot of things that you can do with Facebook groups that make them very, very effective. All right, so Instagram, the reach on Instagram is low and getting lower all the time. They're going through the exact same trend that they did on the Facebook side of the business a few years ago, where they're reducing that reach so that they can increase the amount of times that you pay to actually get that access to people that you haven't had access to before. So that makes sense, I guess, from a business perspective, but it's not, I don't think it's gonna help them in the long run, honestly, because I think more people are gonna leave the site. So here's how the algorithm is working right now. They're gonna expose your post to a small percentage of your followers and a super, super small percentage of non-followers. I'm talking about almost nobody in the first hour. And if they're seeing that the results, the reaction from people is better for this post than your other posts, then they'll push it more and more and more. But it's not gonna happen unless people react in that first hour. That first hour is super vital on Instagram. So you're gonna see that the reach is pretty low on most of your posts and the reach to non-followers is almost completely non-existent because of this, how this algorithm is set up. And I don't know if you heard about this, but Instagram removed like visibility from the site a few months ago. And the reason that they did that, they said, was to keep you from being depressed. But that's crap. There's no way that they did that. The reason that they did it is because if you don't see how many other people liked the post, you are gonna decide on the merits whether you're gonna like it or not, which I guess is a good thing. It gets better quality content, but it also forces the reach down because it forces the engagement down. And if you can force that engagement and reach down, you can increase the likelihood that somebody is gonna pay for the ad, right? So that makes sense. Now, let's look also at analytics. So the analytics on Instagram are pretty garbage. There's only like who followed and unfollowed me. There's not much else. Luckily, you can use third-party tools like Agorapulse for this, which is really helpful. So you can get a lot more detailed information about who's engaged and what your follower numbers are looking like and unfollows and all that sort of stuff. So that's really kind of nice. But analytics on the site itself, you have to have a business account first, and then they're not that great. They're not that interesting, honestly. And then the last thing on Instagram is the loyalty. So loyalty is non-existent. It's just like Twitter. It basically doesn't exist. People will follow, unfollow you all the time. Your content has to be super fresh if you're gonna keep people interested. And you just have to keep going on it all the time. It has to be constant. It's like 1 to 2 posts a day, 2 at the max, I would say. And you have to even be going on the weekends. So you just have to have a scheduler and you're just always going on this, honestly. But you have to keep engaging with people as well. So if you're not engaging with them, then they're gonna unfollow you as well. It's a super easy process to unfollow somebody, so people do it all the time. All right, LinkedIn is bar none the best platform when it comes to reach, because it's just like Facebook was 10 years ago. Facebook 10 years ago, like I said before, you could like and comment on somebody's post and your friends would be able to see it. So it's the same thing with connections on LinkedIn. If somebody is liking or commenting your post, their connections are seeing it. And so then you can build an engagement that way just by making great content, right? That's all it takes. I've seen people put up really silly videos that are professionally spun, right? And they get great engagement on there. So it's something that you can do very easily on LinkedIn. And I find that the most effective content right now is these long diatribes. These things get huge engagement. People love these things, especially if it's about a struggle or something. And the reason that it's different is because people know that this is a professional network where people are talking professionally about things. If anybody starts trying to date anybody else on there, they get angry about it. I mean, so they try to keep professional, right? And so they know that when they're reading one of these long posts, it's not going to be some ant that's going on a political diatribe. You don't have to worry about that sort of ranting. It's going to be very focused, for the most part, on business-related topics. It's kind of like mini blogging, but it's right there in the middle of a feed, and you don't have to bring people over to a Medium page or something like that to get them to actually read it. So that said, it also really highly values native content. Obviously, if you're pushing content off of your page over to another site, it doesn't like that. It wants you to spend as much time on LinkedIn as possible. So that said, let's look at analytics, which are totally weak. That's the downside to LinkedIn, is the analytics are just, there's nothing there. There's who looked at your page, who followed you, who connected with you. That's it. That's all you got. So it's not great, right? So there's really nothing to be said about analytics on LinkedIn. And you can't use a third party to analyze your LinkedIn either. So it's pretty weak sauce, I have to say. And the last thing on loyalty is pretty high on LinkedIn, kind of by force, because if you connect with somebody, it's unreasonably hard to unconnect with them. And if you're following somebody, you just don't seem to unfollow them very often. I can't think of a time when I've seen unfollowers a whole lot. So it's really effective to build your network, and all it comes around to is great engagement, which means great content. That's it. That's all LinkedIn's about. All right, YouTube reach is low. Get ready. If the subscribers are low. Whoa, no way. But it's not wholly dependent on subscribers, which is why I bring that up. Because it seems about 20% of the people who are seeing your video are actually subscribed to your page, especially when you have those higher numbers of subscribers. And so what that means is that there's this huge opportunity to access people who are not your subscriber base. And the reason for that is because it's kind of like a search engine, except only for videos. And so you can use SEO, and this is a Google company, so it's the same SEO rules effectively. You can use SEO to get a lot of access to people. So when I'm making a video, I do a lot of research on what keywords I need to be focusing on and which information I should start working on right now so that I can get more access to more people more quickly. So for instance, the last video I did, this one right here, that was on bounce rate. And the bounce rate video, I made it because the search volume was super high, and the last video that was made was a year ago, and there weren't many people who were competing with me. And so I went for it because I saw it as a really clear opportunity to build out some more traffic on my now currently low 31 subscriber, make it 32 if you want, subscriber base, right? So it's hugely advantageous, especially in early days, to look very closely at what the keywords you're using are so that you can build yourself up in front of more people, because they're more likely to subscribe to you after they've been exposed to you several times rather than just on the first time. But what's great is when they subscribe to you, loyalty is super high on YouTube because people are really rarely unsubscribing. You have to basically piss them off, or they find your content really uninteresting, they forgot about you, they're going through their subscribers lists and they just unsubscribe from you because they forgot you were even there. So loyalty is really high, and that's a huge advantage to this as well. And then analytics on YouTube they are the best. They are the best. Of course they are. Google makes Google Analytics, and that's the best, right? So you can see up to the minute who's watching your video. You can see since you uploaded and posted your video, how many people have seen on the hour, on the day, in the last 28 days, what the average amount of time somebody watches your video is, so you can see if there's some trend in how uninteresting some point of it is. You can even see what other videos are suggesting your video on the side. It's huge, it's amazing. Analytics for YouTube, huge ups. It is the best one on any social platform. All right, guys, that is it. We are out of here. That was everything. So we went through a lot of stuff right there. We went through all of these different platforms, but make sure, just to reiterate, that you stick to 2 or 3 of these platforms. Don't go for everything, or you're just gonna bury yourself in work and you're never gonna be able to recover, and I don't know, we'll lose you. So stay with us, please. So if you like this video, make sure that you like and sub and comment and all that stuff, and make sure that you stay tuned because I'm gonna have another one coming out next week. I haven't decided on what yet. We'll figure that out in a minute. But in any case, I will catch you next time.